Hi, this is Paul Neale at Pen Productions. Today we're just going to do a quick tutorial on how to create a lava flow. I'm going to start in the left viewport, and we're just going to start with a spline. I'm just going to make a line with smooth on, and we're just going to want something that is going to give us a nice sort of place for the lava to flow along. And we're going to add in the extrude modifier, and I'll just make that wider for sake of argument and give us some segments along there. And I'm going to add a noise modifier, and we'll just break it up a little bit in the Y and Z. Make it a little more interesting as far as the shape goes. Something like that looks good. Let's just leave this as a dark gray for now. And I'm just going to leave it as it is in case I want to make changes to it. So I'm going to add an edit poly. I almost always want to collapse it, really. I'm going to throw the edit poly on there. And let's just go and check something. Whenever we do extrudes like this on a single spline, you want to check and make sure that it's actually pointing the right direction, which it is not. So simply there, I'm going to grab, and then I'm just going to say flip, and just flip it over so it's flipping the way that we need to see it. From here, I'm going to need to create a line. I'm going to use the poly draw just on selection, and I'm going to use the splines. First, I'm going to go set my min distance up. Let's try something like 30 and see what we get. And I'm just going to draw a lava flow, and I don't want it too high, or too low, sorry, that minimum distance, just because you end up with a line with so many points on it if you do it, and it's just hard to edit unless you go and run the normalized spline on it. So I tend to like drawing something like that. Maybe gets me my shape, but that's all we need. I'm going to go and make a box real fast, so oops, we'll call it a box, and I'm going to make one that looks maybe something like that to start with. And this box is going to have some just height segments just so we can see what we're doing. And maybe I'll give it something that looks like that. Now I'm going to go into my modify panel and find path deform WSM and just go and set it to the path, set move, and then we can see that we can stretch it down the path. Now there's two ways you can stretch it down the path here. We can set our stretch back to 1, and we can also use the height of the box to stretch it down. That's what we're actually going to do. We're going to stretch it down with the height of the box. So it's happening down below the WSM. Now if you notice, as we stretch it down, the number of height segments isn't high enough, and what we could do is just crank up the height segments and leave it all the way up, but that isn't really necessary. So let's do a little quick bit of connections here. I'm just going to go load the box in both sides into my parameter wiring dialog, and then I'm going to go and find the height on this side, and I'm going to go and find the height segments on the other side, and we can go and add in a little expression like divide by 5 and see what that gets us. And what we'll get now is when we animate this, you can see that these segments are remaining consistent all the way down. So let's try and make that a little higher, just make them a little bit more even. That looks pretty good. So now we can animate this traveling down the distance, and it'll update for us. So let's also add in a taper modifier so that we can get some shape on here. And we can shape it down so it gets thinner. We can even add a bit of a curve. We can even get it to curve sort of past as it goes down. So again, now when it animates, you can see sort of having a bigger front end, and then it kind of gets thinner in the middle as it gets drawn out, but the back end gets fatter and fatter as we go, or it looks as it does going down the length. And again, we can animate the width happening or anything of that sort to be able to get that shape happening. Now this box isn't going to render, so I'm just going to go into object properties and say renderable and turn it off. So this is a non-rendering box. Next, what we want to do is create compound object. We're going to use blob mesh, so I'm going to drop a blob mesh in, and in the blob mesh dialog, I'm going to pick and add our box that we just created. I'm going to pull the size down somewhat, and we're going to leave the probably viewport segments at 4 for now. It might be a little high, and I'm guessing we're going to go down, probably down to 1 for the render as we get moving here. So actually I'm going to increase that maybe up to 5 for now. And that might be pretty good. Now on top of the blob mesh, to make it a little smoother and a little smaller, a little closer to the box, I'm actually going to add a relax modifier and just crank up the value. And we got to be careful here, because when we crank this up, as the value drops down to the amount of segments, you can see that the relax actually has to go higher. So I'm going to take it closer to what I want, and I'm just going to crank up the relax, maybe somewhere around there. And then, of course, it's going to relax even more when I take it back to 5 for the viewport. So I'm just going to turn off, right-click on relax and say off in viewport now, and just kind of live with the size being a little bit different. I could actually switch it up. I could add another relax, so I could say relax modifier. Let's set this one off in renderer, and let's set this one probably closer to where the other is, maybe someone there. So that's probably the same. So this one's going to work in the viewports. This one's going to work in the renderer once the settings change in blob mesh. So we'll be able to keep it the same size. So here's our lava flow going. Let's also add some noise. We're going to add a noise modifier in there. And let's just crank up the values a bit. That looks pretty good. So now what we need to do is work on some textures. So really this entire rendering is going to be based on some nice textures. Now we're going to start with just a simple standard material to get us started here. We could easily push this over into mental ray, but for this demo we're just going to stick with standard and kind of show how to get around it. Now I want to start building this texture and making it look like, it's a nice texture on here. So let's just start with the noise and get a noise base going. And what we need to do is we need to break up that noise and make it look like it's got the right sort of feel to it. So I'm just going to show it in the viewport for now. And we probably need to show it in the, let's just try showing it right in here in realistic. Give it a sec as it updates. And I want to pull the size down. Turn on fractal. Set my high and low values. And you can see we're starting to get this broken up sort of, shapes going. So we're getting some nice shapes. What we're looking for is getting it so that the crust bits are one color and the whites are another color. So you might want to just decrease that. And I'm going the wrong way. There we go. It's looking a little bit better. So we want to get something that really gives us sort of some crusty bits. So the black bits are going to be the crusty bits. And the white bits are going to be the red hot areas. Now we can do this in a couple of ways. One, we can break up these colors now. So I'm just going to use this kind of as an input to break these up into other noise values to be able to get the look and feel that we're going for. Now the white areas, so if we look at this, the channel 2, color 2 here, that's going to be the red, and this is going to be the dark. So let's just go and break them right up in here and say noise again. And we can show that. I'm just going to turn this off now just to speed up updates a whole lot. And in here, let's get us a dark gray. And we'll go with 2 dark gray colors for the colors that we're going to be using. Nice, really dark. And again, I'm going to go fractal. I'm going to turn my levels right up. And I'm probably going to pull these a little bit closer together. And pull the size right down. thinking that's still going to need to be darker though. That's probably going to look pretty good for now. I'll split these apart so they're not quite as rough. And then we're going to throw in, we could try something else actually, as opposed to just using noise each time. We could try and get other sort of fractally shapes using some of the other fractal variations that are out there. So we can actually get some pretty nice ones. If you look at the dent map, you can actually get some pretty nice sort of dent shapes going. Oops, I'm still looking at the noise here. There we go. And it's got a nice sort of squiggly lines. See, as we pull up the iterations or pull down the iterations, you can kind of get more or less of these lines. So we'll leave it at 2. Looks pretty good. We're going to make the lines a dark orange, darky orange brown, and then the maybe something around those lines. So we're going to mix those two together. If we render this now, we should have these dark orangey bits and then the black bits on top. And let's just make this maybe a little bit larger. And we can see that we've got those black bits on there. They're going to be the crusty bits, and the orange is going to be the fiery hot red parts. So we can adjust how much of that we have by the dealing with the settings here, and we could easily give it more. We have a pretty hard fall off there, so we could get less orange and more of the black bits going if we liked. So there's a good start off to it. Now we might want to do, of course, a little bit of specular and bump and things like that. We could just try dumping that into the bump right now and get rid of some of the smoothness that's happening, and start trying to break it up. We can also get the displacement working and pull this down into this displacement map. Now for the displacement, we want to probably have it a little more pushed between the two, and so I'm going to go into color correction node, select it, hold down Control, and drop it on. And in here, I'm going to try and push the values a bit more, so I could take the contrast up and just say monochrome for now. And you can see that it's actually pushing the blacks in. Well, this is going to be exact opposite of what I'm looking for, so I could just say invert and get it to invert. Render it, and it's going to look huge all of a sudden. So it still doesn't look quite what we want. We want these parts being pushed in nicely. And again, we're going to have a difference when we hit render than what we're going to see in the viewports, but you can see that it's not pushing this in quite the way we want. So our color correction might not work. We may have to do something a little bit different with our noise and just pull it out of there and dump it straight in. So let's try that. So I'm just going to make a copy of this, and I'm going to disconnect those two, and I'm going to pipe that directly into the displace. And then let's go ahead and flip these over. So drag one up and say swap, so that the opposite way around, and see what happens. We're starting to get probably better solution than what we had. We still don't have anywhere near enough vertices in the blob mesh to be able to get what we're going for. So I'm going to take my render settings down and whatnot. And this is going to be the problem. We're going to have to keep pushing the render settings down to be able to get enough vertices to be able to get the displace to work. What it really boils down to is that the standard material isn't going to work well for us. That's what I just wanted to show, that as we get into this displacements, mental ray really needs to be used at this point. So let's go into our render, and let's grab mental ray, and we're just going to drag out an arc design, and there's our diffuse color, and then into our displacement map. And let's go and set up our displacement settings. And I'm going to set the edge length down to 1. And we'll leave these others for now. And let's see what happens. So the object looks like blob mesh, display shader, return values. Close. I'm not sure I actually applied that either, so we'll just make sure we apply it because it still had the standard shader on there. And now the splice values might work better because it was complaining about the standard shader. So now we're starting to get a better solution going. You can see that it's pushing it in and making a better shape out of it. It's probably going to be better displacement. Very, very shiny. So let's go and set up just a matte finish on that so we can see what's going on. And now let's crank up some displacement and see how we can make it look. See if we can get those high points to stick up a little bit. And there you go. We're starting to get a better solution looking at that. I'm going to take my blob mesh maybe down to 1, and for render time, and see what we get, and just try and get this work out first. It's looking a little bit cleaner, so you can see that it's broken up. It might be too much displacement now, so it's going to be a matter of playing around with your values back and forth. Now I'm also going to want to hook up and get some self-illumination happening here. I'm actually going to use just copy the map down again, and so we actually want this inverted back over again, and we want to swap that, and I want to put self-illumination in, and I'm actually going to want to self-illuminate that color again so that it becomes orange. And in the shader, I'm going to want to open up illuminate scenes when FG is being used, and then just play around with our physical units to see how much we're going to get out of it and how much we can push that. So let's check and see what that's going to look like. We can see that it's starting to glow here. It's starting to look really glowy. Beautiful. So that's starting to look like what we want. Now it's a matter of doing some tweaking and playing around with our shader to be able to get it to look like these crusty bits. I think they still need to be a bit bigger. We've got not quite enough of them, so I want to play around with those noise settings again, and then the texture in the noise and try and break that up a little bit more. It doesn't look like it's small enough yet, so let's try a little bit smaller. I'm going to try actually pulling the levels down a little bit maybe. That's looking really really clean there. And let's just have a look at a couple things. I don't need the navigator. I don't need I need the property editor, sorry. I don't need the map tools because I don't use those. One of the things I like to do, instead of looking at these small ones all the time, I like to close these up and just have the ones that I'm going to need, and I like to float them on the side. So I'm just going to go and grab and open a preview window, and then I'm going to dock that to the side. And there's going to be our preview window on the side. Now I can also at any point in time just grab another one and open up another preview window, say this one. I'm going to dock this to the side as well, so it's underneath. What's nice is at any point in time you can just pipe into it the material you want to take a look at, and you can see it beside in a larger format as we work in Slate, so we can see all our nodes and how we're piping things together. Results starting to look pretty good. We've got just a quick render here just to see where we're at, and we can see that we've got maybe not enough of the black going on, so we need to add some more black in there and make that a little bit cleaner and a little bit nicer. So let's get all that. Let's get those areas larger. So back to material editor. And we've got two noises here. These two noises now need to stay the same size for all intents and purposes, because this one is pumping in, and I guess really this one too as well. These three that I've got need to stay all the same size, so that we adjust one, we adjust the other, so that it keeps them all in tune with each other. So to be able to do that, we're going to have to open up and show all of the parameters that are in there, hide the map slots that we're going to need. So we can look at the additional parameters, and we'll just say show all for now, so that we've got that. And let's just go and say show all in here as well. And we'll just say show all, and we'll just say show all. So here are all the additional parameters. And what we're really concerned with are the size and the noise and all these threshold values. The colors we're not concerned with. It's the size values, the high-low values, and the other values. We're not using the output currently, so it's not going to be much of a consideration to worry about. So we can say noise size. I'm going to drag out. I'm going to say we need a Bezier float to control that. And then we can just pipe that in to the others. There's noise size. So we can say phase. And again, Bezier control. And we're going to pipe that into phase and phase back in again. And noise levels. And again, we'll just do this for all of them so that we can adjust one value and have all of them adjust for us. So that's going to be the low threshold. And then we're going to have the high threshold. So we've got those values right here now, which is great because we can go in and change the size of this, for instance, and we're changing all of the noise values all at the same time. So I can leave that up a little bit, and we want to take a look at the low threshold and the high threshold. So we can dial that one up a little bit, give us a little more black. Maybe there. And then try pushing this up. Now, the unfortunate part about these spinners is they tend to jump in large increments and not nice small increments. So you're going to have to put the values in. We're going to say 0.5 and we'll say 0.7, and that should add a little bit more. Let's see what we get. So I'm preferring that then. Made the noise a tad smaller, and that looks pretty good. We need to make this fade in and out. So the top, it should start cooling off, and the bottom, it should be hot. Here's where the trick comes in, is trying to map this. So there is no real good way of mapping this based on what we have here to make this work. So we've actually got a blob mesh growing, and we can't have it follow, mapping follow the contours. The problem with the blob mesh is it's actually completely changing topology constantly, and UV coordinates aren't going to deal with that very well at all. And we can't transfer from the box. There's nothing that will really transfer in real time. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use a NURB surface. So I'm going to go into Create and NURB Surfaces. I'm going to grab a CV surf and just pull it out. And we are going to deal with this. Oh, I should have done that during creation. Let me do that again. So CV surf. And we're going to add a bunch of points along its length. And I want to make this wide enough to start with, just to make my life easy. And I'm going to make it fairly narrow, top to bottom. It's going to stretch along this direction. And now I'm going to grab all the CVs and just note where the center is and move it down so the center point is down at one end. So there's the pivot point of it. It's all down at one end. We're going to use this, and we're going to use something called Surface Mapper. So if we look at Surface Mapper will allow us to be able to pick a NURB surface and be able to pull the mapping coordinates from this surface and actually map the texture below with it. And so let's just do a quick test to see what we've got and see how well it works. I'm just going to open up Slate again. And this time I'm actually just going to start a new material. So that's just a temporary one. And we'll put a gradient ramp in there. And I will make it just a butt ugly gradient for reference. I do this sort of thing a lot where I just push things in crazy different directions. I'm going to apply my material to it, and I'm going to show it as a realistic. Or even I could just show the gradient. And we can see now that what we're getting is, you can see where the gradient's being applied. It's also rotated. It needs to be rotated, so I want to say 90 in that. And so our red is our beginning, and the blue is the end. And so we should be able to use this surface now to be able to map this. Now, the easiest way to do that is to actually have it follow the same path. This is a bit tricky because we can't put it on the same path deform world space binding. For some reason, it just won't take on, and it doesn't understand where it is. We have to use a local space one. So we're going to go to the path deform. There's the path deform WSM that we're using. We want to use the modifier. And in the modifier, I'm going to click on it. And here's the hassle. It doesn't respect where the spline was. It leaves the object where it is because it's object local space. So I'm going to have to flip this around. And now you can see we can actually stretch our surface where we're going to need it to go. So what we want it to do is we want it to be in the same basic position as the existing one. And this can be a little tricky sometimes to get the two to line up. Now we're actually pretty good here. And it looks like it just needs a bit of rotation. And then maybe just moved over on top. And then rotate it a bit more. Take a look at it from the side. That might work well. Let's find out. I'm going to set the NURB surface as well to non-rendering, just in case I leave it on, and I'm going to set it to see-through so I can see what I'm doing. And now what you can see is you can see that we are mapping that surface below the NURB surface. So really what we want to have done is we want to make sure that we have it back a little bit. I'm just going to say percent along path back a bit. So we catch the beginning of it. And we're going to go back to the beginning of our animation. I'm going to take the stretch down just over the end a little bit. I can see that it needs to go back as well, so I'm just going to take it back over it, and then something like that. That should be pretty good. It's like I'm covering it. And of course, the end of my animation, and turn on animate. Let's stretch it over the surface. And now you can see that we've actually stretched it down over the surface. It's caught both ends really nicely. Just going to see this better. I'm just going to turn off realistic. And we can see that we've got a surface working quite well. Let's check and make sure that it's still working midpoint. And it looks pretty good. We could time it a bit better if we wanted, but that should work pretty good. So now we can use, so do a quick save on that in case I have any problems. Don't need the shader anymore. I can grab our surface again and reapply our lava shader. And now I can take this map and I can use it to blend together the others. We don't need this temp one anymore. And we can use this now to filter out where the map might change from one color to another. And this should be quite neat. I'm going to close these up again just to simplify what we're looking at. I could also hide the extras if I wanted. So we're going to keep the same displacement, and the self-illume is going to have to get addressed as well. So we're going to have to tweak this a little bit, and we're going to play with these values. So let's start with filtering out the diffuse color and making sure the diffuse color has got a nice filter to it. So when we look at the diffuse color, we have our nice mix. Really what we want is we want a point where it's cooled off, it's got mostly this. And then when it's hot at the end, it's mostly this. So why don't we actually try and do this with a composite map. I'm just going to hold down Control and again dump it in there. And in the composite map, I'm going to need 2 more layers. Top one's going to be, or the first one will be the cooling, let's say, and then the hot on the end. So it's very, very hot. So what we need is the next one is going to be cooling, and then the next one is going to be hot. So right now our entire surface has changed to the hot because it's on top. So let's just turn that off for the moment. So we're back to our entire surface being piped in and showing into the hot, the cool. And it should be. The end result should look like this. Oh, it's because we've got the self-illumination. Unplug the self-illumination. We'll actually see this. You should see this. Probably because it's got so much self-illumination turned on. We'll turn that off. There we go. So now we can see it. So now that we can see that the cool is actually completely overlaying it, and again we can pipe in our hot and show it completely overtaking. So that's on there. Let's just turn that one off for a moment. Let's use this gradient ramp and let's use it to blend in. So I'm going to pipe that into my mask area, and now we can use this as a mask, because we can say, well, one end is going to be white and one end is going to be black. Now let's just show that map. We can see that it's gradating down it. So if we pull up the white and black, we can actually taper off that white and black so that it actually fades off and fades into our normal noise. So again, let's just do a quick render. It's not going to look as good because we've gotten rid of our self-illumination, but now you can see that it's cooled off and then it's turning into the hot area. So again, let's just go right along to the end and do this. Do our test renders, and we'll see where it's cooling off to. We could also animate the tabs on the gradient ramps as well, so that we could lengthen or shorten that area as much as we want and as fast as we want. So that can really change up the way it's going to look. So you can see that it's really cooled off over that time. Now, we could use the gradient ramp to change some of those settings to make it a little more see-through. We can also do it right here in the composite node and just let it show through a bit. So we want to cool it off, but we don't want to cool off completely and get rid of our orangey color. I'm going to make a copy of this, pipe it in for the hot, and let's invert this and make these black and black and white and white. And I'm going to move them down. So I want to get an area up near the front that is going quite hot. So it's actually quite hot. Then I want it to go into the normal area, which is that first texture we built. And then I want it to cool off. And I want to cool it off a bit further back, a bit more. Maybe something like that. And then we can see what that looks like and see what the front edge is. So you can see that the front edge is nice and hot, and then it's going back into black and cooling right off. So I'm going to, I think, push that edge up more, make it smaller at the front edge. So it actually is just an edge that's kind of going. Now we need to plug our self-illumination back in and make it work and hook it into the rest of the solution. So to do that, we're going to need another composite map. We're going to have to plug this in and drop it in. So let's go into our solution, turn it back on again, and then we're going to pipe in another one of these. Now, if you note, this one doesn't have the dark in. We don't have to worry about the dark. We just need to self-illuminate the front edge and make sure that front edge comes up. So I'm going to just start with another composite map. Again, we'll just plug that in. And in the composite map, I'll make one more. And we're going to plug in that, and we're going to plug in this. So we've got a hot front edge. Should be coming up. Looks like we've missed the cooling on the back edge, so I was incorrect there. We need the whole thing. So I'm just going to unplug those and keep it in the same order. So let's just plug that back in again. That goes into that one. That goes into that one. And this needs to stay black and needs to blend in to the dark. So we're going to filter that, and we could filter it with our noise again. See if this works for us. Then plug in that one. See how that does for the filtering of the hot areas. So it needs to go darker. That's the thing. It needs to be completely black, essentially, and that's why in the initial noise here we didn't have that black being piped in. So instead of actually piping in the noise, it's actually allowing it to still be hot in that area. We could just maybe try pumping in black completely, or just the gradient ramp and working with the gradient ramp. But let's just disconnect just the one, and we'll go with color correction into that node with black, and we'll blend into it and see if we can just. So there we go. We've cooled it off. We've got rid of the self-illumination. So there you go, generating a lava flow in 3D Studio Max. Hope you enjoyed it.